So I'm Dan from Parshop Max. I'm joined by Emily. What is your favorite thing to mix with beer?
My favorite thing will be shochu.
Ah, the shochu bomb.
Yes.
And tell me how you discovered the shochu bomb in 2025.
Okay. Before we
Soju bomb. Shochu is Japanese.
right.
Soju
bomb.
is
Yeah,
the
sorry.
Korean one.
Apology. Soju bang. Before we live in Taiwan, I was just hanging out with my friend Rex. She went to Korea for some traveling. She introduced me this amazing drink after she back.
So tell me what you like about soju bombs instead of just light beer by itself.
First, I think it's less bubble. The second is the whole flavor change a little bit.
Right.
Kind of like a little bit sweet, but not too sweet.
Right. It just kind of like maybe cuts like the bitterness of the beer and still has like a lot of the same qualities.
Right.
But yeah, you have a good point. Like I noticed that if you pour like a little bit of soju in the bottom of a glass, then you can actually like just quickly pour your beer in there without having like this giant head on top. So yes, less bubbles, which is great if you're a woman that does not pride herself on farts or loud burps in the Korean restaurant, right?
Right.
Maybe guys don't care, but it's worth a try, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I think more Americans are probably more familiar with the sake bomb.
Oh, right.
You know,
Yes.
because sometimes it gets pretty wild in the sushi joints, and if you go to the right sushi place and then there's like a really pumped like owner, you know, he does that because he loves it. And like, so there's this one place where the owner, I think he's just like hammered like all night long because he goes around from like table to table and he's doing sake bombs with all the guests. So they're all pumped because he's bringing sake bombs to the table. However,
For sure.
he's had like, 5 times as much as anyone sitting at the 5 tables. So, yeah.
I still remember the first sake bomb I have is from Matthew.
From Matfield?
Yes. He gave me when we in Las Vegas.
Ah, yeah.
It's too difficult to forget about that.
I'm sure that was a great Vegas experience.
Yes.
Yeah,
like, everyone is
Matt does Vegas, right?
Yeah. Everyone is totally enjoy at that moment.
Matt is invited to all of the VIP events. Yeah. And then he's gracious enough to bring his entourage with him. So, yeah. Sake bombs in nightclubs in Vegas.
Right.
It's not such a rough life being a pro drifter. But actually, it's very hard. So besides alcohol and nightclubs, anything you want to talk about today?
Sure. Do you want me to start to ask you some questions?
You have questions for me? I could ask you more questions. How did you like my first question?
Just okay.
All right, I see.
Personally,
you might prefer to do
no question.
You might prefer to do the asking. You prefer no questions in your direction. That's fine. I understand.
Okay, are you ready?
I told you before I'm born ready for this.
Okay. So, I would love to know more about all of your drifting experience. So, could you please tell me first, how do you pick up your first drifting car?
So my first drift car, it's a pretty cool first drift car because it's the S15 Sylvia. So I think that I really respected the Japanese heritage of drifting. My first experience drifting was with Esque-san of Part Shop Max Japan in his S13 in the middle of the night on the mountain. So
Wait a moment, you say in the middle of the night?
in the middle of the night, yeah,
mountain?
like totally dark, yeah.
Wow.
Which definitely added to the level of excitement. So sure, because I had, the ultimate introduction to drifting in Japan, that definitely made me absolutely sure that I need to get an S chassis. And then I kind of went overboard by finding an S15. So somebody brought it into the USA and they had it for sale, and it was a reasonable price, and yeah, I'm really lucky to have that car, and I've always taken care of it, and I've never, oh wait, I was about to say that I've never done anything crazy like driving it on the street, which is totally not true. But for the most part, I keep it on the track. And on one or two occasions, I just got like a wild hair, and I did drive it on the street a couple times. Very risky, but for the most of the time, I keep it in house.
Okay, that's a rollback. So,
Yeah, sure.
How many years ago? Your first drifting?
So let me think of this timeline since I'm so old now. So Par Shop Max was started in 2007, and that's around the timeline when I acquired the S15. But my interest in drifting really goes back to more like 25 years ago, like around year 2000. I was working for a car stereo store, and this is like very early for like show car stuff, but I had a VCR. I had a VCR in my Toyota MR2. Like not a DVD, not like streaming on Netflix, but like a giant plastic tape that probably most of my customers at this point have never even like seen or touched in their life. But yeah, that giant videotape, I would actually like physically push it into the VCR in my Toyota MR2, and I would watch drifting videos that my buddy had copied. Like he had this like collection of like option drift videos, and so he just like recorded like copies of all of them, and I would just be like in the car stereo store in the installation bay on my lunchtime, like sitting in my MR2 and watching Japanese drift videos. So that goes back 25 years.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then so I guess at this point, Par Shop Max is 18 years old. So when I got the S15, I definitely hit the ground running because I was also putting on drift events in San Diego, and that was called Drift Circuit.
Okay.
So yeah, super excited, new drifter, and yeah, I hope that questions that we cover on the No Clue Drift Crew podcast, really kind of serves as a source of information. I hope everybody feels comfortable just throwing very stupid questions or like basic questions about cars in general or about drifting, so that they can kind of like get kick-started with maybe like some guru knowledge. Just like I was inspired by Esque-san, and I learned like tons from him, and that started me drifting and getting into Japanese cars, and that's why at Par Shop Max we've always specialized in S chassis Nissan, and even though we've branched out into some other things lately. But yeah, that's my first drift car, right-hand drive. Very cool. Still have it.
Still have it?
Still have it.
After 25 years later?
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, by the way, I think everyone should know like about when you say the very dumb question. I think everyone should know like no matter how dumb you think that question is, you cannot compete. No one can compete with my question. Because I think when I started to learn this, my knowledge is zero. So I'm kind of like curious about everything.
Right. Emily's in a really weird position because she is a very talented on the supply side of the business, but the whole car culture thing that we have going on really strong for generations in USA, it's just not like that other parts in the world. Even in Japan, where we draw our inspiration for drifting, it's extremely different. And one of those core differences that maybe people don't realize at first, because we think like in Japan, they have so many cool cars. I think one of the key differences is, besides being on opposite sides of the world, in America, all of our houses have garages. And in Japan, they don't have garages. And so that one fact alone, and also in, any crowded city, even within USA and certainly in Taiwan, where, fun fact, you can fit like 9 islands of Taiwan. Was it 9 or 12? You can fit a lot of Taiwans inside the state of California. So I forget the statistic, whether it was like 9 or 12 islands of Taiwan, but they have half the population of California shoved into that tiny little space. And even within Taiwan, it's got like this crazy mountain range right down the middle, and everybody lives on the west side. So actually everybody's crammed into half of that space. So it's just really like fractional compared to the amount of land that we have, and therefore nobody has a garage. Same thing's going on with, unless you live in like the countryside, like Esque-san does in Shizuoka, Japan. But if you live in like Shizuoka City, not like Shizuoka County, then you do not have a garage. So, even if we live in our parents' house as drifters in USA, it's a total blessing, and it's just an amazing help to the car culture to be able to work on your own car, have a garage where if you have a jack and a set of tools, like you can put in all the stuff that we make. I think maybe like the engine stuff, that's a little bit deeper, but I really hope that everybody can work on their own suspension and learn about suspension and really start there before like the powertrain, so that you can really get to know like the dynamics of your own car and its behavior and how you can influence that behavior without doing like crazy stuff like motor swaps when you're getting started. Not spending all that money on, like a V8 or a 2JZ. And yeah.
Well, I think
it's our blessing.
Going deeper a little bit.
Sorry.
So
you can reel me back in if I just start to go off on any tangents.
Okay, but since you mentioned about that part, I'm wondering, so what makes you think S chassis is good for drifting?
Well, basically S chassis is great for drifting because it's a manual transmission. It's a rear-wheel drive. Unfortunately, in USA, we didn't get the turbocharged model. So that kind of like sets us up for an extra challenge versus the way that they come in Japan. But yeah, S13, S14, S15, there's tons of aftermarket support. So I think when anyone chooses a car, I hope that they would make it easy on themselves by really factoring in the level of aftermarket support. You know, some people, they have like some wild idea, like they're gonna make a cool drift car out of like a mini truck or just something completely unusual. And just because a lot of people, they don't want to do the same thing that everybody else does. They want to, you know, be unique. However, they're just setting themselves up for like a huge challenge. And skills wise, you could be so much farther ahead if you have a car that a lot of other people have, and then you can kind of like, you know, make friends and like share information. And you know, when you need to upgrade it, the stuff is just like in stock in USA, like ready to go. And actually for us, like many parts in the world, you know, we have stocking distribution in Europe and Japan and Asia, even New Zealand.
Yeah. So, but any downside to that chassis?
Well, there's definitely a downside because like in USA, we only got the weak motor. So, you know, it should definitely be turbocharged. Even the KA motor that comes in the USA cars, at least it's like 2.4 liters. So when you turbocharge that, you have, because the Japanese motor, the SR20, is 2.0 liters. In USA, we don't have a turbo, but we have an extra 0.4 liters. So when you turbocharge that, you actually like, it's actually pretty good. Like it gets more torque than the SR20. So Tommy's car at the shop, it's a S13. It has the original motor. He turbocharged that, and he does great. Like even without getting too crazy on the motor, you know, it can still hit like that just right power level where it does great on the drift track. The tires are affordable, and that power level I think is like 400. Like if you go past that, you start breaking stuff. You start breaking like axles. You know, you can destroy the diff, all the stuff in the drivetrain that's, you know, responsible for handling that power. You know, you're gonna have to buy like wider tires that are more expensive. But if you're in like the 300 to 400, not over 400, you know, in between there, you know, like around 350 horsepower, I think that is just a great level of horsepower. And that'll make your life easy because, you know, you're not replacing transmissions and just, you know, destroying all the parts. You can have more seat time if you have like a reasonable amount of power.
I see. Since you talking about a lot of like an engine, so I heard the engine like you call 2JZ.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me more about that?
Sure. Basically, two motors that are like really popular for motor swaps are going to be the LS V8 from Chevy, you know, as seen in the Corvette, and it's going to be the 1J or 2JZ. 2JZ GTE is from the Toyota Supra here in USA, and in Japan, you know, they have it in the like the JZX.
What's it different about 1J, 2JZ?
You know, I'm not an expert on those motors, but I think it has to do with like whether it's single turbo or twin turbo, and also if they have like a variable valve timing or like a simple cam. And I think that there's some displacement differences as well.
So please tell me if I'm correct or wrong. So you basically think maybe when people want to start to have a drifting, first they choose the correct car and the engine is proper setting there?
I mean,
So
when
they
you're
don't.
getting started, you should just drift with the motor that the car came with and get the suspension dialed because, like if you're choosing an S chassis Nissan, the the first thing that is going to hold you back is any piece of rubber in the entire car. I mean, the subframe bushings, the knuckle bushings, the bushings on the arms and rods, it's all trash because that is like a classic car now. And rubber bushings don't last. And so right now, 100% of S chassis just have to change like all their bushings. And people think like, I don't know, they have like some conservative thought like, oh, maybe I should do urethane, but urethane doesn't last either. So the only real like permanent professional solution is to swap like everything to bearing or solid. And some people are a little shy about solid bushings. They think that it's going to be really noisy, but this is so counterintuitive. On old cars with completely destroyed bushings, this means Mazda RX-7s, S chassis Nissans, and honestly, even like 350Z. At this point, Z is like the new S chassis, and those things aren't getting any younger. So really, all those cars, and even brand new ones, they need the bushings changed for a different reason. Okay, but we're talking about the old cars right now and totally destroyed bushings. So the counterintuitive thing about putting a solid bushing is like if you put solid subframe bushings in an S13, it's actually quieter than the OEM bushings that you took out. Now, the OEM puts in those rubber bushings for the exact purpose of reducing noise, vibration, and harshness. But when that thing is trashed and old, it's so noisy. It's so noisy
Even
that
their
a new,
rubber.
yeah, destroyed rubber is extremely noisy. It's just banging all over the place,
Oh my
and
gosh.
you have like no driver feedback. So when you replace that with a solid aluminum bushing, suddenly your car is quieter. And
Wow.
that's hard for people to understand because it's the only reason why they put rubber in there in the first place
Yeah.
is to like make it quieter.
Yeah.
But it just has a limited lifetime.
Right. Yeah, because we all think the common sense is we just put rubber so we will not hear any noise come out.
Right. And
That's
that is
all the OEM
that's the
factory
same
does.
reason why people are inclined to replace rubber with urethane. But all urethane is it's just kind of like a stiffer rubber, and it just has a limited lifetime too. So you're just going to be right back in there doing like a bearing conversion or a solid bushing later. So why not just spend money once and do it right?
Okay. Hey, so what do you think about? Is it better to learn something like a underpower when we are so new to try to learn the drift?
For sure. I definitely recommend that.
How many times, like how often you go to track?
How often do I go to the track? We got into the drift parts business so that we would have more opportunities to drift. And the irony of that is that when the customer is our boss and we're just endlessly working to satisfy all the customers, and the customer's number one, that is actually such a huge task for a small crew like us that we actually end up drifting less by being in the parts business.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an interesting question I want to ask you. So in the first beginning, you love drifting. That's why you start to learn.
Right. It's very dangerous it's cool and it's dangerous to have a hobby-based business because, well, you love your hobby, but you also have like a very good chance of ruining that hobby versus somebody that just like has a 9-to-5 job and they get a paycheck. And then on the weekends, they're completely free. And, they're free to like go do their hobby. And, yeah, we're pretty busy people.
Yeah, but
running a business, we're like working on the weekends, and my customers drift way more than I do.
of course. But I mean, at the first beginning, do you ever think like you want to become a professional drifter in the future?
It was very clear to me just by being around the pro drivers that we've known for years, and in trying some competitions myself. It's very clear to me that competition is like a high stress thing, and business is a stressful thing too. So it's crystal clear to me that I need to like stay away from competition so that I don't have a stressful time drifting. Like, I just want to keep drifting fun and, not ruin my hobby by trying to like be a pro drifter and be in the drift parts business. It would just be too much. I don't know how Odie does it. Maybe he's fine because he just makes coilovers and we make everything. So he can still like actually have a life.
Hey, so just a very funny question. Did you crash your S15 before?
Oh, I am so good at not crashing.
Really?
Yeah,
Be
yeah,
honest with me,
Yeah.
everyone.
We were testing the S15. SK-san comes out here. I'm like, SK, hop in the S15 and drive it. SK-san crashes it like immediately.
Oh my.
I'm like, dude. But, okay. So if you have an opportunity to choose your car, and you can choose like a totally shitty one because you're sure that you're going to crash it anyways, so you might as well buy like a total piece of shit car. Or if you can buy like a really nice car, in my opinion, buy the nice car. Because if that car is too expensive for you to be crashing and fixing it all the time, then
So you will remember.
you will have like an extreme sense of motivation to not crash that car. It will make your driving better. And the thing that I just said, it seems to be the complete opposite of what everybody does. Everybody's just like, I'm going to destroy this car, so I'll buy one that's already destroyed, and then I don't have to feel bad about destroying it. But in my opinion, you're going to stay on track, and you're going to be on that line, and you're going to be doing exactly what you're supposed to do if you have like a beautiful car and you drift it. And yeah, it's fun to be like all up in your buddy's door and everything, but when you're starting out, like, have some respect for your machine. There's a style aspect to drifting too. And like a lot of people that have drift style cars, they don't even drift them. They just really like the style. Like, they're totally into the style of drift style cars, and they build their car like that. And yeah, they never drift it. But if you can increase your skill and you can have an excellent looking drift car, then that's a great combination. But if you buy like an absolute bucket of bolts, pile of shit car, and you take it out there, like, no one wants to pay attention to you. That's not going to look good on Instagram.
Right.
But if your car looks good and your skills look good and you have that combination, and you post that on the gram, that'll get a lot of attention.
Okay. Well, since the S15 is your first drifting car, so what part you tuning first?
I definitely followed SK-san's advice, which is the first part that you should get for a drift car is a bucket seat.
A bucket seat?
That gives you the proper position for your body to not be like sliding around, so that you can properly control the car. A lot of people just lower their cars.
Yeah,
You know,
change the
they get a
suspension.
set of coilovers first, but really, like a bucket seat is super important. So, back to like my recommendation that you get a really nice car with style and you go drifting it, then you'll appreciate my advice on getting the bucket seat first.
I believe.
So that you can be in a confident position and not be like having a death grip on the wheel, which is not how you control it. Like when a drift car is set up correctly, it almost drifts itself. Like, you counter steer into the drift, you let go, and the wheel corrects itself, right?
Yes.
So when everything's like totally dialed, your arms and hands, they're just in that 10 and 2 o'clock position, and you're just kind of like flicking your wrist, going back and forth, transitioning in between corners, and you make it look easy, because it is. Because you're not like all over the place from G-forces.
Well, so since right now your main job is design the drifting parts, so what makes you make this decision? Like you want to switch your role
Switch my role from what to what?
from just, I mean, you still doing you still bring your hobby into your life, but since you just say like become a drifter is very like a high pressure, so is that reason to make you want to start to design the parts, like to let everyone can enjoy? Like what makes you wants to design the parts?
So our first motivation is that we just bought parts that are like commonly available and we put it on the car, but we always want to improve. We always want to make things better. So back in the day when like I first bought the S15, there's just some pretty basic adjustable parts for the car. Like no one was raising up the subframe, but we know that helps with roll center. That helps like make the axles last longer because it mellows out their angle on a lowered car, making the joints last longer. But when we raise the subframe, suddenly the rear upper control arm is smashing into the pinch weld on the chassis in the back. So one of our first original parts was a rear upper control arm that has this huge angle built in between like the main tube and the adjuster and bearing housing. So it kind of like the whole arm has like a V-shaped angle. So that connection between the tube and the rod end receiver, it's clearanced right there where it would just pound the chassis. And also some racing rules are that, you can't just go cutting up the chassis. They don't allow modifications there. So like that was a great example of like one of our early first parts where we just want to do things better. We made this arm so that people don't have to, take a saw and clearance out their chassis to use like a conventional straight rear upper control arm. And then we just rolled with that. There's so many little things that we discovered that we could do better. And when we're satisfied with those parts, then we share it with the community.
So it sounds like the whole journey is you start to drift and you find out there's some problem come out and you notice and you make the change.
For sure.
And
we're solving problems. We're learning.
Extend to other arms or even the bushings you mentioned.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like in the S chassis, all toe arms were straight until our toe arm. And it has a kink in it. It has a bend.
Yes.
Because the toe arm is right below the bolt for the subframe. And when you lower the car, those things get really close. So we have clearance in there.
Oh, there's one thing I'm curious. Why like a S chassis, people can buy each arms individually. Why some cars cannot, like a Z34? What's the difference between those two cars? Does it because the design side, or it's basically, the chassis is just like that, so no choice?
Okay, so if people are going to get into tuning their cars and changing their alignment specs, and like we talked about, getting rid of all the rubber being very important, basically they need all of the arms and rods. The reason why we sell them separately and not only in sets is that people have been drifting S chassis Nissans for a very long time. So if you pick up an S chassis Nissan, it might have like 3 out of the 5 rear arms already installed in the car. Previous owners, it probably has several previous owners, and so it's really common to buy a used car and it's already kind of like partially fixed up. So because of that, we need to sell them individually. Another reason is because if you bend something, you don't want to have to buy like a whole kit. And I think one of the reasons why people love us the most is that we sell each individual component of every assembly, every like pair of arms. You can buy just one side. You can buy just a taper pin out of the joint, not even replace like the bearing, the rod end, the adjuster, the tube. Like if you just bend the taper pin, you can just buy that from us. It's a reasonable price. We have it in stock every single day. You can have it shipped to you as quickly as you want. And you don't even have to know the name of that thing that you bent. You can simply take a picture and then text it to the shop number. And the shop phone is an iPhone, so we can get picture messages. Tommy will know exactly what you need. He'll get you a price with shipping, and that's some top level service. If you bought a pair of arms on eBay, and you bend like a pin on the joint, you're buying another pair of arms from eBay.
Yeah.
So our stuff might be a little bit more initially, but those things have many lifetimes. And trust me, I know, because I see the price of our parts on like the used part market, and I'm always blown away by the price of our used parts. And the sellers of the used parts, like you can find some like fucked up Engel kit from like many years ago, that's like missing all kinds of stuff. And I swear it's like people are selling this stuff for like 10 or 20% off of like full price. In my mind, the day that you open something, like it should be like 50% off on like the used part market, right?
Do you mean
that's
like
not how our stuff is? Our stuff is getting like most of the original price. It doesn't matter if it's like 15 years old, missing a bunch of stuff. It's the worst buying decision ever, because if you pay like 80% of a brand new part and then it's like, it's like rusty, all the threads have like, like a bunch of dirt in there. Like you're buying adjustable parts that are like, maybe not even adjustable anymore because they're like all seized up and just super old. Then you call Tommy, you get a quotation, because like the seller even says like in their eBay ad that like, oh, I lost this or I lost that, but you can just like hit up Part Shop Max and they'll totally like make this thing complete. But the thing is, like once you spend like another 20% on like all the replacement parts, suddenly you have like a 10 or 15-year-old assembly that is now complete, that cost exactly the same as a new one, but you only have like a couple new pieces in there. Otherwise, it's like a rusty piece of shit. Lesson is, you should have just bought like the brand new one, new through and through. And we're always improving things. So it's like the part we make today is way better than the part that we made 15 years ago. So, you should seriously consider buying that new one, unless it's just like a deal. If it's a crazy deal, but you know what? I never see crazy deals. I always like see myself being fully surprised.
I see. So, talking about the price, I noticed since day one, Pasha Max price is only one solid selling price. A lot of customers, especially in Asia, they always ask me about like if we have some special price can offer them because they are car shop company. But you have a very special angle when you set up this rule to only have a price to offer, no matter it's the shop, dealer, or the end user. So please.
For sure. So classically, the aftermarket car parts business and just fixing up cars in general is based on, it's founded on what I call like a hookup culture. So classically, you would only buy a car part if like you knew someone and they could hook you up. Like you know the guy at like your local tuning shop and he just slangs deals on like whatever brand they have in stock, right? So the problem with this is that if like everybody needs to like have some profit to like run their business. So what happens is like these hookup shops, they just don't last. They go out of business. And then what good are they to you when you need your next part? Also, in the hookup culture, it's like the MSRP is marked up because they know it needs to be marked down in order to sell it. But you know, we're enthusiasts just like our customers. You know, we're actual members of that enthusiast community. So we're well aware of this. We respect their intelligence, that they would do their own research and actually buy parts based on their virtues, like their level of features or strength or quality relative to that price. You know, if it's a great part and it's a decent price, the value is in there, and then that's what makes them buy the part. So in order to make sure that we were pushing like the best value to the end user from day one, knowing that it's a hookup culture, we're just like, all right, you know what? Let's cut the crap. Let's not sell wholesale to like any shop that has a business license just so they could like undercut our pricing. These parts are easy to install yourself. You don't need anyone's help. You can go to an alignment shop and get it like dialed in. But I mean, every arm and rod is like 2 bolts. Coilover, it's like 3 bolts on the top, 1 bolt on the bottom. Anyone can do this. Anyone can learn how to install these parts. So I encourage people to do this themselves. What we did from day one is we cut out that middleman and we're selling manufacturer direct to end user. The discount is already built in because we don't have any tiers of wholesale pricing. Traditional way is you have the manufacturer and then that goes to a distributor regionally, and then the distributor has dealers, and then finally it trickles down to like the end user. And then some brands actually even undermine the profits of their own distribution network by having like a racer discount or like a jobber pricing or something like that. And it's just like such a big complicated game, and it's filled with so much bullshit that we just wanted to like cut the shit and get people like the best value parts that we possibly could. So from day one, we are a direct sales company.
Yeah, I think
there's no dealers.
That's very good. I think you just try to treat everyone the same respect and try to have maintain fair marketing.
Right. And it's the same reason why we don't sponsor people. Everybody on every level that sends me sponsorship requests thinks that they're special. This is a special project for them. They're building something and they want to build it better than everyone else. And with that goal in mind, they'll tend to want to get people on board with that. But when we don't sponsor anyone besides the dudes in Formula D, what that means is that when guys do their own research and they spend their hard-earned money on this brand, even if there's some other stuff that tempts them because it's like, 50% off or something like that, everybody should know that when they see Part Shop Max in someone's car, it's because they did their homework. They love this stuff. They choose to spend their hard-earned money on this. They know that it can have many lifetimes and basically last forever because you can totally rebuild this stuff. You can get any little component from us. And, I think that's what our customers' buying decision is made on, not just because it's a deal. And to be honest, no one even asks us anymore. We spent 18 years educating customers about how we do things differently. And right now in today's retail environment where you've got the Apple store and the Tesla store in the mall, direct to consumer is much more normal.
Right.
So I think people just get it now. Maybe in Asia they're still locked into that relationship based system, but people know what's up. They don't need to play that BS game anymore.
Good to know. So since we talk about so many about the Part Shop Max, this company, let's get back a little bit. You have to design so many cars. So let me ask you, the first question is, what did you learn from S chassis, from that car?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
So
support you to improve your skill, like a design side.
So I talked about a couple of the ways that we improved the S chassis. But sure, it's definitely based on our feeling. We made all of our earliest parts for S chassis. There's been many generations of improvement in the Engel kit for S chassis. So at first we were modifying the knuckles, the original knuckle on the car. And the end game is that we ended up with a forged knuckle replacement. So what we learned in the S chassis is that when we would add something onto the bottom of the steering arm of the knuckle, it was actually ruining the bump steer in the car. So you would go over bumps and then that would kind of give you feedback in your steering wheel. It definitely added angle. It produced there was less cutting in that thing that we were adding on to the OEM knuckle, but it had a downside. So what we learned is to correct the geometry, and we became much more sophisticated with also offering a trailing spindle version of the forged knuckle and with Ackerman adjustment built into it. So that's the evolution of the knuckle in S chassis. So we learned a lot during that time. And we also have over the lifetime of us supporting S chassis, we have now 3 front lower control arms that you can buy depending on what your needs are. So we have a Pro and Limit Brake fully adjustable front lower control arm and tension rod or caster arm combination. And then we have an OEM style one that has like a fixed additional width. So whether it's adjustable or it's fixed, basically in order to get all the angle out of the knuckle, you need to have a long front lower control arm in order to have more inboard clearance when you double the steering angle.
I see.